Let's be real. After this episode, the Shining twins ain't got nothing on two 10-year-old Beth Smiths. They would have broken Danny's finger after hearing one too many Tony impressions, and I'm pretty sure they'd Home Alone the hell out of the Overlook Hotel. You're watching WhitneyVision, and these are all the Easter eggs and details you might have missed in the CuRicksous case of Bethjamin Button. This is your spoiler warning! If you haven't seen Season 8, Episode 6 yet, hit pause on this video and come back once you've survived Rabies River. This week's episode title, The Curicksous Case of Bethjamin Button, is a reference to the 2008 film The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, the story of how Brad Pitt is born an old man and slowly ages backwards until he becomes jizz again. The movie was based on an F. Scott Fitzgerald short story of the same name from 1922. We finally got a proper A-B plot this week, baby! I was literally just saying how badly I wanted to see an episode featuring the whole Smith fam in at least two different storylines. The writers used to do this a lot more frequently in earlier seasons, and I personally really like watching multiple high-stakes adventures that still manage to dive deep into individual character motivations. So to start, I want to talk about all the little details in Earthworld. I had to watch some of these scenes on half speed just to read all the signs and look at all the faces, which means we've got a lot to cover today. Earthworld was built by park designer Dr. Dogballs, voiced by the one and only Danny DeVito. Dr. D is an alien who got so obsessed with Earth that he decided to build a theme park centered around his limited knowledge of our planet. Rick insists that they're all about to see some real fucked up, dangerous shit, but when they get there, the whole place has been sanitized and corporatized. Earthworld is totally lame now, bro, and Rick is hella pissed that his cool spot got commandeered by normies. Instead of a bunch of rickety, disease-riddled attractions, there are a sea of basic-ass rides and gift shops. Near the park entrance, we see a human store, a play objects store, and a little human stall where you can purchase stuffed baby dolls. Street signs read Rentals, Theater, and Main Road, which is apparently Earthworld's attempt at having their own main street. If you can't find what you need at the Gap, you can always check out this human teeth stall on your way to the Moving Sidewalk Spectacular. Some park guests are carrying naked humans as a novelty backpack, while others are sporting Earthworld's version of Mickey Mouse ears, which is just a pair of human ears on a hat. Employees at the park wear hats with suns and moons on them, which seems to be recurring branding. They've got juice boxes to drink, and if you're hungry, you can snack on a corn dog topped with a little pug head. I have a very narcissistic conspiracy theory, which is that someone on the Rick and Morty team is a fan of my pug, Pugsley Adams, and wanted me to feel a brief moment of joy in my meaningless, moneyless existence. The alien serving them is a Smumpian, first seen in the pilot episode. Topiary toilets decorate the streets. An attraction called Pets of the Presidents of the United States boasts an education on some of the animals that have lived at the White House. The window dressing shows several presidential pets, including Socks, Bill Clinton's cat, Rebecca, Calvin Coolidge's raccoon, Pauline Wayne, William H. Taft's cow, Gaye, JFK's poodle, and either Bo or Sonny, one of Barack Obama's Portuguese water dogs. At the gift shop, you can pick up a replica of Teddy Roosevelt's pet pig, Maud. The Hall of Presidents is an attraction at both Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom Park in Florida. At the Earth Items shop, an alien shoplifts a pair of sunglasses. You can also buy beer steins, shirts, what's either an Earth pin or a blue condom, who knows, backpacks, pillows, mugs, thermoses, and books. At Earthworld, the bathroom ride is actually a real thing. Apparently, Rick turned Jerry into a trash can at some point, and now he has to pee sitting down. Rick references Steve Jobs in comparison to Dr. Dogballs, another creator who died and left us with a subsequent decade of boring products. While Morty and his new alien hookup are checking out their photo from the Traffic Jamboree ride, Rick equips Summer, Jerry, and himself with bobblehead tech that allows them to blend in with the park's mascots. Don't worry, I'll go over all of those guys in just a sec. The fam heads underneath the park to its hidden staff tunnels. This is actually how Disneyland and Disney World operate behind the scenes too. The Disney theme parks have the largest utilidor system in the entire world. Cast members use these utility corridors to perform their less fantastical job duties without ruining the magic for guests up above. That's why you never see the person who plays Mickey Mouse changing into their fursona in Toontown. Walt wanted to create a seamless illusion of dreamscape for his guests to play in. Here, Jerry mentions that there's a Panera Bread somewhere in Earthworld, where I'm strongly hoping they still serve the lemonade that kills you. The refurbished park also has a Wilford Brimley-themed ride called the Diabetes Flume, and in that same scene, you can see a gigantic gold toilet statue behind Gap. We also see the Janitor Experience ride, Dog Soup Bistro, the Group Imagination Room, a store called Human Trash, a booth where you can watch paint dry, the Tower of Taxes, a parody of the Tower of Terror, the Mosquito Pavilion, the Carpet Sample Stunt Show, Just Divorced Apartments, the City Hall Crawl, Serial Killer Paradise Woods, a hipster coffee shop, the Cat Scratch Cafe, the Tunnel of Divorce, and a restaurant called Baseball, Just the Food. Before they reach the parking lot, Summer steals a woman's car key that have a Patrick Star from SpongeBob keychain attached. Her car's license plate reads JP3 Sucks, aka Jurassic Park 3 Sucks. I actually really like that movie, and I'm kind of a sucker for the third movie in an original trilogy. All of the row markers in the parking lot feature different human body parts, like feet, teeth, and eyes. But now it's time for us to talk about the real Earth world. The Earth world that the cookie-cutter corporate overlords don't think you can handle. When they first arrive, Rick mentions several rides that we don't see in the app, including Pol Pot, a ride based on the Cambodian politician, dictator, and leader of the Cambodian Communist Party in the late 1970s. He also talks about It's a Small Black Death, a parody of It's a Small World that focuses on the bubonic plague pandemic that swept medieval Europe between 1346 and 1353. Lastly, there's his happy memories of the herpes family flume. Down in Dogball's basement office for mascot design and maintenance, we see a bunch of his favorite Earth tchotchkes, like an M&M Statue of Liberty, a Magic 8-Ball, a mermaid poster, a fork, a toaster, a cat toy that looks like it has a shoe stuffed into it, and a few casual floating human body parts. He's also got posters of famous Earth landmarks like the Taj Mahal, the pyramids, the Sphinx, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and what looks like it could be the Spring Temple Buddha and the Parthenon. It turns out that most of the old park is still standing, despite lack of maintenance and a plethora of infectious diseases. Here, we see a ride called Who's Stalking You? And another called Falling Nightmares, which is interesting because it implies that those nightmares you have where it feels like you're falling is specifically a human experience. Next, Dr. D is gonna tell me that aliens can't see the Hat Man either. Next to the burger stand, we've got the Hitler's Mind ride, as well as a Civil War-themed ride called Pain 4D. The ride itself travels through a bullet wound, and to its right, we see the Blood Alcohol Simulator ride. Then there's the Workplace Outbreak ride that seemingly takes place in a news station when a sickness breaks out amongst the staff. The news ticker reads, "Come watch crime at 12 a.m., but I'm pretty sure the bigger crime is that Snakes Only stand. We also see the super bleak Suicide Bridge ride, which I'm honestly not sure how you're supposed to survive. The World War II themed ride features cows and pigs fighting one another, which seems to be a reference to George Orwell's Animal Farm. There's a literal cowshed in the background, so I believe this scene is supposed to represent the Battle of Cowshed from the book. Sound of Music Julie Andrews is holding a machine gun, and there's a butter bomb car in front of the warring farm animals. When the ride says that World War III was fought with combines and harvesters, it's a reference to the Harvest Brigade, an American initiative that gave farmers combines and harvesters so that they could meet the nutritional needs of hungry soldiers. Before taking the big Iwo Jima buzzsaw drop, you can also see bullets with smiley faces on them, a nod to Bullet Bill from Super Mario Bros. Next, we've got the Rabies River ride, the Secondhand Smokehouse, the Spleen Remover, and the Murder Horn, a parody of Disneyland's Matterhorn ride. The big globe at the center is also a parody of Epcot, Disney World's international fair. It features wonders of the world and famous landmarks, such as the Statue of Liberty in the USA, the Eiffel Tower in France, the Space Needle from the USA, a dome-shaped building that could honestly be any one of several religious locations, Christ the Redeemer statue from Brazil, Sensoji Temple in Japan, Big Ben in England, the Pyramids of Giza in Egypt, and the Great Wall of China from China. It also turns out that Dr. Dogballs isn't employing regular humans to dress up as bobble-headed celebrity mascots. He's creating fucked up science experiments that turn into murderous Funko Pops at the flip of a switch. His assortment of famous people is pretty random too, allowing for photo ops with sword-carrying Marie Curie, John Legend, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You can also attend a meet and eat with David Bowie as Jareth from Labyrinth, Steven Seagal, or Kevin Costner as the Mariner from Waterworld. Now here's one I'm stuck on and I need y'all's help. Does anyone know who this guy is on the Nothing Beats a Smile poster in the tunnels? It looks to me like Robert Townsend, but the rainbow makes me think of LeVar Burton, even though that guy looks nothing like LeVar Burton. Another poster shows the 4 mascots of the month, including Natalie Portman as Nina Sayers from Black Swan, John Legend, Hitler, and Marilyn Monroe. While Rick is introducing the 3 of them to Kevin Costner, he claims that he's old Guy Fieri. Summer is Princess Diana of Wales, and Jerry is either Mr. Rogers or Brett Kavanaugh, the whiny piece of shit loser who cried in court about beer, calendars, PJ, and Squee. Down in Dr. Dogball's lab, we see Whoopi Goldberg, Abe Lincoln, and Mao Zedong. In his underground lair, there's Nick Cage, Natalie Portman, Stephen King, Marilyn Monroe, Hitler, Count Chocula, Danny DeVito, Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games, Pennywise from It, and Muhammad Ali. We've also got Steve Buscemi, Ted Danson, Weird Al Yankovic, Tony Hawk, Park, and another bobblehead I'm stumped on. This blonde woman in a pink dress. Do you know how many blonde women with bangs there are in the world? I genuinely have like 15 contenders for who this could be, including Betsy Johnson, Anna Nicole Smith, Cameron Diaz, Taylor Swift, or any drag queen with access to a wig, a pink dress, and tights. But I'm not confident on any of those people, so let me know who you think it is in the comments below. Next, we meet the Culkin Hydra. Although Morty mentions that there are 7 Culkin siblings, Shane, Dakota, Macaulay, Kieran, Quinn, Christian, and Rory, we only see 6 heads on this monster. Technically, there's also an 8th Culkin half-sibling, Jennifer Adamson, who isn't included either. Our last few monsters in the park are Lucille Ball, Hayao Miyazaki, Macho Man Randy Savage, Charlie Chaplin, and Wendy the Wendy's mascot. Damn. Those are a lot of Easter eggs for one fucked up theme park. But now it's time to mosey on down to A-Plot Town, where Beth and Space Beth are in for a ride of their own. The episode begins by showing us the monotony of both Beth's routines and their respective jobs. As they go about their work and personal lives, the song Where Everybody Knows Your Name, aka the Cheers theme song, plays. In this opening scene, the song is used to show us Beth's discomfort and familiarity. Sometimes having a routine and seeing the same folks every day can be great, but other times it can feel really goddamn boring and basic. Sure, it's nice to go where everybody knows your name the first couple 100 times, but after years of same shit different day, life can start to feel pretty stale, especially when you have a husband and kids that depend on you to be their stability. Beth and Space Beth don't want to be anybody's stability right now. They don't want to make Jerry a sandwich or find Morty's crossbody bag or chauffeur Rick to Earthworld. They don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. and sew a horseback together, or bounty hunt across the galaxy to rescue some dumb alien every day like clockwork. They thought they'd be happier once they cloned themselves, but they don't really know what that happiness even looks like for them. As Space Beth fights her way through a series of tough guys, one of the aliens she faces down is the blue monkey-esque species seen in Vindicators 2, Mercy Kill, when Supernova and Dorian slaughter innocents and invasive species on Dorian 5. At St. Aki's Horse Hospital, we see Davin in the operating room for the first time since Season 1. We first met Davin when he was crushing hard on Beth all the way back in the pilot, and again in Rick Potion number 9 when Jerry slaughtered his mantis form in the Cronenberg dimension. While Beth eats food from the Crystal Diner's drive-thru on her way home from work, Space Beth chows down on ration Type K breakfast units and canned Gouda. When the two get to reminiscing over a bottle of wine, Beth mentions that they used to date a guy called Pep Rosenfeld who died in that thing, aka 9/11. Pep Rosenfeld is a political comedian who had a show called 9/11 Forever. He was also the founder of Boom Chicago, a famous improv school that operates out of the Netherlands. Some alumni from Boom Chicago include Seth Meyers, a bunch of people who work on Ted Lasso, and the writer of this episode, Heather Ann Campbell. Realizing that the last time she was truly happy was when she was a child, Beth and Space Beth decide to de-age themselves and spend the afternoon as 10-year-olds again. I saw that a lot of people online were confused about Beth's actual age. So just to clarify, Beth is 34 years old. She used the machine to subtract 24 years, arriving at 10 years old. She didn't subtract 10 years from her age, she set the machine to make her age 10. This tracks because we know that Beth had summer when she was in high school, evidenced by the photo of her and Jerry on prom night from the end of Season 3's ABCs of Beth. Summer is 17, which would mean that Beth gave birth to her when she was 17. It's honestly terrifying that Beth and I are the same age. She fights space villains and performs complicated horse surgery first thing in the morning. She has 2 kids and a house and a husband. I sleep until noon, wake up, light a joint, and watch cartoons all day. We are not the same kind of 34-year-old woman whatsoever. Except for the part where I would totally get drunk in a treehouse any day of the week. We first saw 10-year-old Beth C-137 in Season 3's Rick Shank Redemption, and during Rick's memories at the end of Season 5's Rick Mirai Jack. So let's clarify something else real quick that I've seen confusion about online. Here's how the current Smith-Sanchez family tree shakes out. Rick C-137 is our Rick. His Beth and Diane C-137 were murdered by Rick Prime when Beth was 10 years old. Our Morty is Rick Prime's grandson, not C-137's, and is from the Cronenberg dimension. Rick C-131 is the father to our Beth and Space Beth, and the grandfather to our Summer. We got hints early on in the series that he had abandoned Beth as a child, especially because she was so desperate to form a relationship with her dad over the first few seasons. Rick and Morty C-131 were killed in Season 1's Rick Potion number 9 when their lab exploded, so Rick C-137 and Morty Prime take their place after the Cronenberg dimension becomes uninhabitable, burying their corpses in the backyard. Jerry 131 got switched out for Jerry 5126 by accident at the Jerry Burree, so we haven't seen him since Season 2. So, to recap, our current Smith-Sanchez family unit is made up of Rick C-137, Beth C-131, Jerry 5216, Summer C-131, and Morty Prime. For the purposes of this episode, you really only need to know about Rick C-137, Rick C-131, and Beth and Space Beth C-131. But regardless of dimension of origin, there's one thing that all Beths have in common. They were fucking scary kids, man. As we learned in the ABCs of Beth, every Rick in every dimension created a version of Fruipyland for their daughter, a magic secret world accessible by chalk that was designed with safety at the forefront. But not all of those safety measures were made to protect Beth. Fruipyland itself was made to protect the neighborhood from Beth, specifically from anyone that annoyed her, including other children and defenseless animals. She actually abandoned her friend Tommy in Fruipyland because she was jealous of his friends, Nintendo, and loving father, and asked her dad to science her up a bunch of bizarre, violent, and manipulative toys. Over the years, she had him make her a ray gun, a whip that forces people to like you, invisibility cuffs, a parent trap, a lightning gun, a teddy bear with anatomically correct innards, night vision googly eye glasses, sound erasing sneakers, false fingerprints, fall asleep darts, a lie detecting doll, an indestructible baseball bat, a ladybug taser, and a sentient pink switchblade. When I was 10 years old, you couldn't pry me away from a bag of goldfish and the boxcar children, baby. I was locked into the couch reading books about orphans who solve mysteries. This bitch was putting together a toy wish list that violates the Geneva Convention, which actually might explain why I'm not a horse surgeon or a bounty hunter. Based on the contents of her toy box alone, plus what she did to Tommy, baby Beth clearly exhibits some signs of antisocial personality disorder. Rick confirms this when he makes a backhanded joke about her being a sociopath in the ABCs of Beth. I'm not a doctor, but he's a scientist and a dad, so I believe him. She's violent, manipulative, narcissistic about her advanced intelligence, fearless, and remorseless. She harms animals, other children, and even adults. And these are just the things we heard Rick talk about in Season 3. It doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of how fucked up Beth must have actually been as a kid. While adult Beth is certainly a lot more tame than kid Beth, she still displays those dark triad traits as a 34-year-old. Sure, adult Beth won't kill a small animal or stab someone with a knife in her day-to-day life, but she does use her scalpel, intellect, and lack of anxiety under pressure to perform high-stakes surgeries on horses at work. In fact, research shows that a high percentage of surgeons have antisocial personality disorder, or traits of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, which is what enables them to keep a cool head and remain unwaveringly confident while slicing and dicing. A lot of high-functioning adults with ASPD seek out positions in various professions where high achievement is required or valued. In nearly every case involving childhood symptoms of antisocial personality disorder, abuse is the common denominator. Personality disorders, including borderline personality disorder, which I have, often stem from childhood trauma. In Beth C-131's case, that trauma involved Rick C-131's careless abandonment and her mother's death. The good news is that children who experience early symptoms of a personality disorder can change and grow, especially as they age. Certain behaviors can dissipate as someone gets older, usually around age 40 for people with ASPD. Not everyone with a personality disorder turns into a serial killer or a violent criminal, and someone with that disorder might even save your life on an operating table one day. Like any personality disorder, it really depends on the individual, their brain chemistry, and their access to mental health care. For example, I'm not building a murder treehouse in my yard anytime soon, but that's because I spend 100% of my YouTube money on therapy and Lexapro. But in Beth's specific case, she's still pretty violent as an adult. She didn't just abandon Tommy in Fruipyland as a child who didn't know any better. She actually went back in with a baseball bat and killed him. And Space Beth's entire job is killing people, unlike regular flavor Beths. While Beth is keeping horses alive and tolerating her family, Space Beth is slaughtering aliens on the regs. She, like her dad, thinks that therapy is kinda bullshit. She's pretty indifferent to the suffering of others. And even Jerry C-131 viewed her as a violent, manipulative, uncaring monster during the intergalactic marriage counseling session in Season 2's Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. She chose to create a clone of herself because, like Rick C-131 before her, there's still a huge part of her that would rather abandon her family and go on space adventures than continue to be trapped by the labels wife, daughter, and mother. And sure, every woman feels like fucking off to outer space and abandoning the laundry and school pickups and board meetings, like, all the time. But Beth did all of this right after she killed a guy, so, it's way different. Once she transforms, Beth immediately murders a possum, and later on, Beth later accuses the other of killing and eating a bird. They both transform the entire yard into an elaborate saw trap for grown-ups, which is probably what Beth did in her childhood neighborhood frequently before Rick gave her the chalky keys to Fruipyland. Interestingly, the girls go heavy on the chalk in this episode too, drawing disturbing pictures on the yard walls and their cardboard fort. Most of the drawings depict Beth's interests. You know, just girly things like horses, the cool S, and human decapitations. She even draws a picture of the Parent Trap from the ABCs of Beth, aka a giant bear trap intended to snare adults. But honestly, most of Beth's drawings really show just how depressed she was as a child. In addition to the broken hearts, sad rain clouds, sinking boats, and spaceships flying away, Beth drew a picture of her father with devil horns, an expression of her anger towards Rick C-131 for abandoning her to explore the galaxy as a child. Even Beth's drawings of sunshine are sad, proving that even though adult Beth believed that things were easier for her as a kid, they really weren't easier at all. Sometimes as adults, we get rose-colored glasses about our childhoods because we didn't have the words at the time to explain to ourselves how fucked up everything was, which is why 34-year-old Beth inside 10-year-old Beth's body is so terrifying. All of her grown-up pain and trauma are shoved into the body of a 10-year-old with limited capacity for impulse control. She's lashing out at the unfairness of her father's abandonment like she's done so many times before, but now she understands why she's doing it and chooses to do it anyway. I can tell you from experience that no matter how old you are, doing something reckless and harmful because you hate your dad is better than any drug I've ever tried. In addition to the chalk drawings, the Beths have decorated their fortress with stuffed animals with their heads on a spike, a cardboard dragon with chalk flames behind it, a best friends forever sign, and a drawing of the two of them holding hands like shining twins. Inside the treehouse, they also have an actual parent trap that later latches onto Rick's leg, as its intended function. They also edit the sign to read best enemies forever and stab the drawing of the two of them together with multiple knives after they turn on one another. Before hunting Jean, the Beths warm up by eating a nice bowl of cereal while watching footage of the Challenger exploding on the news, further proof of their callousness towards the death and suffering of other humans. When they crash into Jean's bedroom, he truly doesn't seem fazed at all, because at this point, he's definitely seen weirder shit than the de-aged clone daughters of his next-door neighbor. On his dresser, the entire Twilight series is on display. The Beths start fighting with each other, wearing the masks from the home invasion horror movie You're Next. The blue teddy bear that one of the Beths slices open during their battle is actually the teddy with realistic intestines that she asked her dad to make her as a kid, seen back in the ABCs of Beth. After the girls stab Jean and start a fire in his kitchen, it's revealed that Rick has actually rerouted all of Jean's 911 calls to an answering machine that he probably never checks to prevent the cops from showing up at their house every 5 minutes. When we listen to the voicemails in the mid-credits scene, the first complaint he makes is that his neighbor's house keeps disappearing and reappearing, something that happened during Rick and Summer's epic house party in Season 1's Ricksy Business. So when Jean's hand is degloved, Rick shows up to pay off the ambulance drivers, and heals his mangled mitt using the nice and handy device first seen in Season 5's Forgetting Sarah Morchel. Despite falling victim to several of the Beth's traps, it's actually really endearing that Rick responds to their shenanigans so level-headedly, like he must have when Beth C-137 was a kid. After getting got by several of their treehouse traps, he tells them to stop home aloneing and explodes their entire fortress along with all of their weapons. But the Beths are just getting started. They lock Rick in the aging chamber and bump up his time to 360 years old, which he's somehow able to survive, likely due to his cybernetic implants. With their father old and defenseless, the Beths finally unleash all of the anger they felt as 10-year-olds when Rick C-131 abandoned them, and all of the unresolved trauma that they're still holding on to as adults. Rick heartbreakingly tries to explain that he didn't leave them. His Beth died, and he actively made the choice not to leave her when Rick Prime came knocking on his garage door. Our Rick might have been a great father if she had lived past 10 years old, and while he'll never know if he could have been the dad she needed when she was that age, he knows that he can be there for her now. But, as the Beths point out, it doesn't really matter that he isn't the one who left them. They're angry and hurt that someone did. Back in the ABCs of Beth, she told Rick that she only acted out because she wanted his attention. And that's true of all Beths and all Ricks, no matter how good of a dad they are now. Rick C-137 admits all the time that he was a crappy dad and husband, even in the universe where he chose to stay and raise his kid. Regardless of whether he intended to or not, Rick C-131 made Beth feel like she came second to his experiments her whole childhood, and he confirmed that fear when he chose the portal gun over her once and for all. In this moment, it doesn't matter which Rick left which Beth, or which Beth died and which Rick spiraled out because of it. Rick is proud of his daughters for making him old and kicking his ass, because he understands how hurt they are and how hard they worked to overcome the bullshit he put them through. In return, the Beths are able to see Rick as his younger self and forgive the mistakes he made in the past, finally trusting that this version of their father wants to have a real relationship with them in the present. After returning to his normal age, Rick rebuilds the girls' treehouse, proving to them that he's gonna stick around from now on and help them rebuild their relationship too. This time, when the Cheers theme song plays over a montage of Beth's day-to-day, it's finally back to the song's intended meaning. After mainlining childhood for 2 hours, making their dad old, and talking out some feelings, both Beths are feeling better about the familiarity in their lives. I don't know, man. Sometimes you need to go on a bender to reset your brain and appreciate what you have. But I'm talking about grabbing a few margs and a soft pretzel and maybe a little online shopping, not trying to murder Gene. Just to be super clear, you should never try to murder or harm anyone just because your dad sucks. I think that's probably the most important thing we need to take away from today's episode. That, and maybe don't go on a ride that gives you rabies. These are just some of the Easter eggs and details that I could find, but I want to know if there's anything I missed in the comments. I'm Scarlet Wit, and you're watching WhitneyVision.